This is the talk of Music City Real Estate.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN, the talk of Music City Real Estate.
Where we educate and motivate all things real estate.
Hey, everybody. This is Monte Mohr with Realty One Group Music City.
Hey, and I'm Carey Ann with CMG Financial and my mortgage team. And welcome back Sunday evening.
Welcome back, Carey Ann.
Yes.
Hey, before we go any further, happy birthday, young lady.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I am 29 forever. Plus 13.
Plus 13. Let's do the math real quick on that.
No, don't do that. Don't age me. I'm going to always stay young. But yes, I'm a January 1st baby.
Are you kidding?
I was born in the blizzard of 77 there in Grand Forks, North Dakota on the Air Force Base. Yes. So,
was it a good birthday?
It was a great birthday. I'm blessed to have another birthday, and so it's always good. I'm a big I grew up with my mom always celebrating birthdays, and she made it a big deal growing up, and so I tried to do that with my little one. But I remember, my parents would take out the furniture in the house and the kitchen and bring in the pool because I was a January baby, so I never got to have the pool party. So, they would bring in the plastic pool in the kitchen, and then I'm not sure I would ever do this in my house, but my dad.
Water in it?
Well, it was kind of like, the thought, right?
Oh, okay.
But then he did put sand around, and my birthday cake was a big hamburger. And then all of us, when I was 10, would go to the YMCA to go swimming. It was cool.
Oh.
Yeah, lots of fun growing up on the birthdays for sure.
Wow.
And so,
Well, happy birthday.
well, thank you. But it's February. It was, right after my birthday. We're moving right into, the month of love.
It is a month of love.
It is.
We're only 2 weeks away from Valentine's Day, guys. Let's take a hint there.
Hey, but we're only a few minutes away from the big Super Bowl.
Oh.
Check it out.
I'm excited about it. How about you?
I am. Who are you rooting for? Do you have your dip ready at home after we leave here?
I'm more interested in the dip, to be honest with you. Guacamole. Guacamole is my
Guacamole?
favorite. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I'm a New Englander, so, I do love our Titans here, local, and they did so well. But yes, I'm a big a fan of my local hometown there of New England. I grew up right outside of Boston, in that small town of New Hampshire. So we love our Patriots.
The Titans? Are you afraid to admit that?
No, I think it's fun in the Super Bowl to see somebody. Yeah, and for the quarterback to be close to my age, that's a big deal. He actually might be my age, or he might be older than me. So it shows that we can still, if you got it, you can still do what you can do.
That's what I'm talking about.
Exactly. So excited. Now, big things I love about the Super Bowl. National anthem and the halftime show. So do you remember a national anthem that was the most memorable of all national anthems of the Super Bowl?
One doesn't come to mind, but please tell me what yours says.
I guess the question, Bonnie, is have you ever watched the Super Bowl? That would be the question there, no?
I've worked almost every Sunday, open house and that kind of stuff, so I have partial excuse. Yeah, I've watched a few so
okay, yes, well...
I'm a sports guy, just I haven't had the privilege or the benefit because I've been out working all the time. How do you think you sell 3,000 homes?
That's true. That is true. Awesome. Well, I love, watching all the playoffs and the Super Bowl. But remember that one from Whitney Houston?
Oh, that was my favorite.
Yeah, that one I could still play right now. It's amazing. I still get goosebumps.
Wow.
All the way up. Yes, she's amazing. Late Whitney Houston, we love her. I'm not sure who's singing today, actually, for the Super Bowl on the national anthem, but can't wait to hear about it. So thank you all for joining in to the Talk of Music City Real Estate. Remember, all of your questions, you can send those to us. We love all of them to questions at talkmusiccity.com. Again, questions at talkmusiccity.com. We can make sure to help answer all of your questions. We want to make sure you're feeling confident and comfortable with everything to do with real estate. Again, if you are one that likes to hashtag, Monty, what is that again?
That is hashtag Talk Music City.
Yes, and if you would like to follow us on our Facebook page, all of these our episodes are being videotaped, so you can check out the podcast, the Talk of Music City Real Estate Podcast. So if you miss us or have to run, be sure to check out on Mondays for that podcast. So excited. So we are going to catch back up with our conversation we were having on what's the topic there, Monty?
We covered some great topics underneath the main headline is here are the 10 most common mistakes that homeowners make when selling today's market. And of course, we want to show them how to avoid those mistakes.
Yes. Making sure that we don't have those mistakes will allow for less frustration throughout the process.
That's right. It can actually make a difference of thousands and thousands to somebody's pocket and bottom line if they're really paying attention to embracing this. First one was not hiring a proven professional. We know in a hot market that sometimes that's tempting. People think that they don't need the help, so they want to save some money. I used to have a saying with my kids that sometimes kids' shortcuts are long cuts when they crash around and they don't work out so good. So the second one was procrastination. Most folks think that the best time to sell is during the springtime or summer, and it's really not. I mean, it's not a bad time to sell. I'm not saying it's a bad time, but I'm saying right now there's less inventory than there will be at that time.
Sure.
So yes, there's more activity, springtime, summertime, when things are green and grassy and growing and so forth, but instead of not having anybody else on your block with their home for sale, like you probably see right now, you're going to see a few homes for sale, and people have more choices. When people have more choices, the prices don't go up; they typically go down. Number three, presenting your home properly. We learned that it doesn't matter how busy you are, right, Carey Ann?
Yes. Stuff it all in the closet.
Stuff it all in the closet. That was
and
your
lock
secret.
it. Yeah.
So you must live like your home is going to be shown every day. Remember, living in your home. Remember this now. Living in your home and having your home on the market, two different worlds. It's like the moon and the earth. Okay, two different worlds totally. The sooner you adapt that reality that I'm living here, I'm not living here, my home's on the market, the sooner that you can get past that. Because remember, the longer your home sits on the market, the less you're going to get for it. That's why that's so important to everybody. Mistake number 4. Go ahead.
Poor photos. Yes, making sure that you have really good photography. And you're not using your cell phone for those pictures, right? Make sure that everything...
People are tempted to. Still.
Yes. Trying to save the dollar. So making sure that you have really good photos is key. Pricing your home incorrectly. So making sure that the home is priced exactly what it needs to be.
Another assumption is that because when the market's hot, people think they can just put a number on there, and that's not how it works. You've got to pay attention to the comparables because it doesn't matter what you sell it for; it's still got to appraise in most situations.
Yeah, and I can't wait to talk about that more, maybe in a different show. All about appraisals. I'd love to bring an appraiser
on here so we can really get into it.
Yes, we definitely want to.
Maybe we can punch them once in a while, just to show them. No, I'm just kidding. I always try to tell appraisers that they're my second most important person in my life, next to my wife.
Sure.
Because we want
and me, Monty.
I'm sorry.
And your kids, but okay. I just pushed the kids out of the way and moved right up there.
Because we really want them to work with us if at all possible. And not that our knowing them or being nice to them matters ultimately because they still have to justify the numbers. But I always respond to appraisers because they're always looking for a good appraiser will do their homework to see were there any circumstances in that experience that caused that home to appraise for maybe a little more or a little less or whatever. So
absolutely. That was our fifth.
That was our fifth.
That was our fifth. Absolutely.
So we're done with those.
All right. So let's get started and talk about the 6th mistake. What is that one, Monty?
This is really a common one out there, and for those agents out there that are listening that are experienced, I know you know better than this, but some of the newer agents don't, and this is the main reason we want to share this, of course, with that is for the sellers that are thinking, oh my goodness, somebody had just made an offer on our home they're willing to pay what we're looking for, but all they've got to do is sell their home first. We never want to go along with that idea, Carey Ann, because
we don't?
No, we don't want to do that because we're literally putting our eggs in somebody else's basket. We're putting our hopes, our expectations, our future in something we're not really familiar with. I mean, especially if they're a next door neighbor to us, and we have the same agent, okay, maybe we can work through that. But 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, taking a contingent offer, contingent upon the sale of another home, is not a good idea, is what we're talking about here, okay? Because your home is contingent now, and when a home is contingent in MLS, you're going to lose some of the showings. That's just the way it is.
Okay.
Now, a lot of more experienced agents aren't even going to show that home, even though it says it's contingent upon the sale of another home, because they're not going to take the chance, because in some cases, that buyer is able to still move forward if they get bumped, and you don't want to put your buyer in a home that they can't have. Is the mindset there? So don't do it. You're not going to get the number of showings. You don't know how well they're priced. You don't know their circumstances. You don't know how serious their motivation is of selling. And all that hinges on them selling their home so they can buy yours. It doesn't matter what they're. Now, there's one caveat to that.
Okay. Real
quickly, and that is, and I have seen that I've utilized this tool before, and that is simply providing a large enough deposit, non-refundable.
Non-refundable.
Okay. So when Connie and I bought a home a couple years ago, it was a retiring couple. We wanted to make sure they knew it was solid and so forth. And this was before you informed me that I couldn't buy a home, and we didn't know that stress was. You really got to talk to your lender first. I learned that lesson.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that sometime. How do you sell homes for all this time and not know that you couldn't buy something? But anyway, where was I heading with that?
Yeah, you were talking about the importance of the contingency upon sale.
So I put that $5,000 down.
Oh, right, large refundable. Yes,
non-refundable. Only to find out that I really wasn't ready to buy a home because of a credit issue, because of a late pay, if you recall that, on the investment property. But my point is, that is one time that it is probably makes sense, because the worst case, let's say the worst case happens, they don't sell their home, they back out of the deal, you've got $5,000 non-refundable, that'll pick up a couple payments anyhow. That's how you kind of have to look at it. Your home's been off the market for a few months, so you want to make sure you've got enough proceeds to pay to cover that.
Yeah.
Monthly, okay?
A lot of families think they have to make a contingent, and they don't know that there's other options, even from a financial standpoint. Absolutely. That we could look at bridge loans, right? We can look at ways where we can pull some of the money out or the equity out of their current property to put down and kind of bridge them over as they are taking the time to sell their house. So that is one option.
At that.
Yeah, there's a lot of great products that are out there that allow for that. So you and I can get around the concern that the seller may have with it being a contingent upon sale, offer. Now, with that being said, you do have to be comfortable and prepared to have multiple payments, right, for a period of time. And usually when I set this up, I'm thinking 2 steps ahead, and we're pulling enough money out to satisfy all payments for that buffer period as well. Okay. So not just for the money for the down payment, but also to make sure that you're not going to have any concerns, with making that payment every single month until your house sells. Right. And there's a lot more that goes into that. And if you have any questions at all about that particular topic, we want to share more with you on that. So, hey, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue talking about the most common mistakes that homeowners have when selling in today's market. You're listening to the Talk of Music City Real Estate.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN, the Talk of Music City Real Estate,
where we educate and motivate all things real estate.
We are back, Carey Ann. We want to again remind everybody that questions at talkmusiccity.com is where you want to send those questions. That's questions at talkmusiccity.com. I'm hoping that we get to talk real soon about some of these questions we're getting, and we're getting some really good ones.
We are. I'm excited to start kind of diving into those for sure.
But first, we want to go on to the 10 common mistakes. We want to finish this up. But before we go to the next one, I'd like to talk a little more about this contingent sale situation, Carey Ann, because you do bring, I'm really hard against that, but you bring a whole nother dimension to it, a whole nother possibility that somebody can pull some money out of their existing home to buy the next one. Let's talk a little further about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, sometimes the contingency upon sale is due to someone's comfort level, right? And there are other ways of getting around that. And if you are one that is talking to a lender and you do have a house to sell prior to purchase, or that the equity out of your current home is going to be put down on the new property, they can talk with you about maybe an equity line attached to your current property. And usually that equity line allows you up to 89% of the appraised value. Okay. And so what you do, and depending upon if you get a drive-by appraisal, if you get a full appraisal on your property, or if you get a computerized appraisal, and that's called an AVM report. And so usually we start with the AVM report, make it as easy for the client as possible. And so that appraisal amount comes in, we take 89% of that, and then we subtract out what they currently owe. And that's what they're going to net with some minor fees. And the cost of doing a equity line are minor to none. Okay, just depends upon who you use. But that's going to be the amount that you pull from. But the great news is that's going to be an interest-only loan loan. It's going to follow the prime rate. So that interest rate could vary. It could be prime plus 0 or prime plus a half or 1. It just depends upon, again, the bank that you're talking with. And so that money can be pulled out, and the full amount could be drawn. It's for you to put down on the new property. And again, or you can only pull a portion of that, and you can save the remaining balance for a rainy day if you get overwhelmed with the multiple payments that you do have to pay. And so that's kind of how I like to set everything up, is for the just in case, because we do have the expectation that we're in a great market. We're going to be selling our houses really fast, but you and I know that sometimes things do happen.
Sometimes it happens.
And we need to plan for that, right? We need to go get that.
I love it that you keep that in mind. The carrying basis.
Yeah, I think it's really important for everybody, because you don't want them in a situation, any customer to be in a situation that they're feeling uncomfortable, and all of a sudden now they have 2 houses, they have 3 mortgage payments, what do they do, right? But if set up properly, and if a plan is put in place, it is an easy process for sure. And so you only have to pay on what you pull from that line. And so if the remaining balance sits in your sits on the line, and that's $10,000, let's say, and you don't pull from that, then you don't pay anything on that $10,000, and you pay for the amount that you put down on the new property, right? So that's one option that you can look at. If your house is currently on the market, usually that loan to value, or LTV is going to drop down to usually 85% of the appraised value. So they do require a little bit more money.
Though. I thought it would be 80%, but you're saying 85%.
Yes, it's still over 80%. Absolutely. So it does allow for you to pull out a little bit more money and to put down on that. Now, we want to be creative. At the end of the day, what is your final result? What are you looking to do? Well, if you want to put the remaining money down in that house after you sell it onto the new property, sometimes we have to be really creative on the new mortgage payment. And that goes into, sometimes it's a little overwhelming, because we may set you up with 4 mortgages. And the only reason for that is because you want to think about your final result.
Right.
You want eventually your payment to only be blank. And so when you sell your house, not only are you going to pay off your first mortgage, the second mortgage that's attached to that current property, and then you want to pay off the other mortgage that's on the new subject property as well.
The second mortgage, the HELOC.
Yes, right, the other mortgage that's attached. So then you are left.
You end up with 1 mortgage.
After all that's to be said, right, exactly. You end up with 1 mortgage payment with your taxes and insurance. And sometimes lenders don't do that, because it's easy to do something completely different and just give you 1 mortgage payment altogether. It's going to be a higher one, and then they're going to talk about refinancing you in 6 months, right? And so that is an option, but it does cost the client more money. And my goal is to find the most efficient way and most cost-efficient way for our clients, right? And so setting it up where maybe my last mortgage payment really is only $60,000, right? And so for the lender, that's not as attractive as a $300,000 loan, but it is the right loan for the customer. And so we want to lead with doing things that are right for the client in regard to that. So yes, contingent upon sale is one that we do see often, and it could be that the client does not approve for this. The debt to income ratio is too high. Their comfort level is at a level that they just do not want to go there. They just don't understand it. There's a lot.
That's the hardest part is wrapping your brain around 3 or 4 mortgages. Oh no, I can't do that. You start feeling like you're being sucked into a hole. Let's talk just for a second about real life, and that is, as you know, you helped Connie and I do exactly that on our last 2 homes. The beautiful thing about being able to bridge that money, I think, one of the beautiful things, of course, you can go out and find a home. You don't have to make your offer contingent upon the sale of your home, especially when if you've got your home priced right, the equity's there, and you're going to control how soon your home sells.
Right.
It's just that the typical scenario when people are selling and buying is that they've got to hand those keys off that day, and they've got to be out of the house. And sometimes you get a little bit of time, but not here in Tennessee. It's customary to turn the keys over the day of closing, which creates, I think, a lot of extra stress, which I really hate seeing. But anyhow, that's the typical scenario here. So think about this for a minute. Those who have that ability, and that is, you close on your property, you bridge that money to close on, and you haven't closed on yours, but you have now access to, which we did in both cases, access to do some work on the property, do some painting on the property, not have to wait around the paint and so forth, and really literally control what we were going to buy and not worry about, okay, we got to have ours sold, before we can actually really make a commitment on the next one. Or if we do put an offer on there, we're going to have to be full price or higher because we're really a wannabe buyer on the other end. We're a contingent buyer, so really not a solid buyer. We're a wannabe buyer. That bridges that whole situation. You don't have to deal with that.
Sure.
So I love that part.
Sure. Yep. And we're talking about usually conventional, financing when it comes to all of this, right? And so it just depends, again, on the client and the credit score. Credit score has a lot to do with that. We're going to talk one whole show just about credit, because it's really something I'm really passionate about and trying to educate everybody about. But, making sure that the credit score is what it needs to be as well. And so, again, there's options, but sometimes the only option is to do the contingency. And like you referenced, it's not as favorable when, accepting a contingent upon sale offer.
Not for the seller, for sure. The other part, though, on that is it's really not, excuse me, it's really not for the buyer either, though. And we didn't really hit a lot on that, but it creates so much stress for the buyer. I got a call Sunday night that these clients of ours are wanting to, she did what I said don't do, and that is go out and look at homes, because she went out and looked at a bunch of open houses, just wanting to find out. Well, then she did exactly what I said not to do, and that is fall in love with something. Whenever we take somebody out looking at property before they're actually ready to buy, we say, look, we're just dating. We're not falling in love. We're just going to go out and see what's available, okay? Well, she did what I told her not to do, and that is go into a house and fall in love with it. And she calls me in a panic, wanting to put a contingent offer on it. I said, Jenny, the best you can do is full price and probably a non-refundable deposit, or full price offer with them keeping it active on the market, and you're going to be worrying daily. You won't be able to sleep. Here she is pregnant with twins, and it's just going to be not a pretty situation.
Sure.
Too much stress around the clock here. So I talked her off of that and said, look, let's focus on selling your home first. Let's not go to that contingent route, because they don't have the equity to do what you just talked about.
Right, and I think you're right. Like you referenced, it could cost the buyer even more money because they're putting extra money down. Asking for full price. There are some sellers like myself that maybe wouldn't mind it, only because I needed more time to be able to maybe get myself organized, to sell it. So I guess it all depends on the situation and what you're kind of looking at, right?
I think if you have the confidence in the agent that's got that side of it, that will help. And if you know what neighborhood it is, we did the one recently. It was in East Nashville. We knew it was going to sell quickly, and the people agreed to a contingent offer.
With Nashville too, there's so many people moving here, right? So some of these contingencies are on homes that are not even here in the state of Tennessee, right?
Those are the ones that scare me the most, because we don't know what that market's like.
Absolutely, yeah. It is. You want to trust what they're saying, but until you actually see it in the statistics of it, right? To make that happen. Hey, so you're listening here to the Talk of Music City Real Estate. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back to finish up the 10 most common mistakes that homeowners have when selling in today's market.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN, the Talk of Music City Real Estate,
where we educate and motivate all things real estate.
Hey, Carey Ann, we're back.
We are back. Hey, this has been a great conversation. I'm learning so much. I can't wait to sell my house. No.
I'd love to sell it. That antler chandelier, is that what you call it? An antler chandelier?
Yes.
That's amazing.
It is.
I mean, I couldn't believe it the first time I saw it. The only time I've seen it, your antler chandelier.
I think that was a big reason why. Well, I remember I told you that was the picture that I saw, the first picture that I saw that got me drawn to that house.
You just proved everything that I tried to argue, and not argue, but state. You got to have the front elevation of the house, because people assume there must be something ugly about the house if you lead with an antler chandelier. But where do you go from an antler chandelier?
Right. I guess, when you're someone that is looking for a lodge type of home, if they would put that in their home, we might be connected. We might have something in common. This might be the house, for me. But I was looking for a very specific type of home. Right. I think everybody has their own needs and wants, So I was looking.
I haven't had that big a demand for antler chandeliers, to be honest with you. But I know where to find one in case you want to sell.
Yeah. Well, the thought of we won't even go there on what I was going to say, but it's beautiful and I love it. And it is one that I made sure was left. I did a lot of shopping. That's another whole topic. Can you shop for things in the home? Can that be part of the contract? Right. And so that's something to discuss maybe on a different show too.
While you're there, does the lender frown on that, or that they're putting a 30-year mortgage on an antler chandelier, does that bother him at all?
Right, absolutely. Yes, yes. So everything that is a part of the contract that is over and above appliances and things would have to be of no value.
Right.
And so, or you would have to have a separate contract with your seller to purchase those items. And so that's what I did, in regard to that. But
good to know.
certain things, it's interesting. This house that I purchased, came with a few TVs, more than I needed. And I learned that if they took the TVs, they had to leave the backing of the TV, which then forced me to take the backing off the wall and have to repaint or buy new TVs.
Buy another TV.
Right. And so at that point, I was like, leave the TVs, So it really is interesting, how everything kind of works throughout that whole process. So
I assume that the reason why the attorneys, are requiring that the brackets be left behind is probably because the holes that were left when people were taking them with them, I guess. I don't know why else, but who wants the bracket sitting there staring at you?
Right, yeah. I mean, that's, and again, or the holes. Either two, it's kind of overwhelming. And now you've got these TVs, and do they just sit there, or do you connect your DirecTV or Comcast to it?
You can't have a house as cool as yours without them connected, that's for sure.
Well, hey,
so I
can't wait to hopefully get home and continue watching that Super Bowl when we get home on that TV, right?
Exactly.
Too funny. Hey, so let's continue this talk. Hopefully everybody got some really good information about the contingency and the bridge loans and how you could purchase, maybe the opportunity to purchase without selling your house. So that was really good
information. The main
information.
thing to remember there is avoid going into the offer with a contingent upon your home selling, especially if your home's not even on the market yet. We had one offer come in the other day that they didn't have their home on the market yet. So there's not a chance of that. I mean, it's one thing to have shown good faith that your home's out there and you're willing to pay the asking price and you're willing to put up some non-refundable money even. But if your home's not even on the market yet, well, when's that going to happen?
Sure, and especially maybe in today's market, there was a time, and I was living in that time where we were just excited to see those offers. So a contingency offer back in the day was a big deal. Today, with the market going as fast as it is, and as Nashville's real estate market is booming as it is, right? So the contingency may be frowned a little bit more upon, than before.
By me, for
okay. Sure. Monty's is frowning. All right. Turn that frown upside down. That's what I tell my 6-year-old.
That's right.
All right. Let's talk about mistake number 7, not putting a sign in your front yard.
Were we going to answer one of these questions we got?
We do. We had a question come in. Yes.
I know.
I'm so sorry.
And thank you, everybody, for waiting around the chips and dip for a few minutes and listening to our show today, because we're getting questions in. That's very exciting.
Yes. And remember, questions at talkmusiccity.com is where you can send all of your questions, everything to do with real estate. So we are here for you to answer those. So the question that came in here, and this was a good one, it's from Ben and Sharon over there in Donaldson. We are thinking of finishing off our basement. Can we expect to get equal value for the additional square footage if we do so? And how tall does the ceiling have to be to count it as livable space? Great question. Thank you so much, Ben and Sharon.
It is a great question. So, first of all, the best I can come up with, just as far as a rule of thumb on that, is any square footage below grade is about 50 cents on the dollar. Okay. If your above grade is worth, let's say 140, your below grade is probably worth 70, maybe a little bit more than that. And that, of course, depends on, does it have a bathroom down there?
Okay.
Is it a walkout basement? Those kind of things matter a lot. The other part of that question about how tall does the ceiling have to be, for any space like that to be counted as livable space, it needs to average. When I speak about average, Carey, I'm talking about, there's stairways coming down. There's maybe sometimes ductwork in the basement. Those kind of things. It needs to average 7 feet.
Okay.
So when I'm 6'6", whenever I'm in a basement, I always go like this, about 6 inches, and I know whether it's legal or not. Okay? If that helps. Not everybody's 6'6".
That's why I look so short next to you when I wear my flats. You're tall.
But anyway, so great questions, and that really holds true to any sort of square footage. If you're thinking about finishing space over a garage or basement or anything extra that you can finish off to add square footage, which I highly recommend, do make sure that criteria is in line, and that is that it has to average 7 feet. And so, I don't want to go down that, I guess. Well, let me share that real quickly. When you were talking about a family room, for instance, over a garage.
Okay.
You know what a knee wall is? It's when the wall comes in. Okay. So that knee wall, you only can count if it goes down, gradually all the way down to the floor. You can only count it at 5 foot.
Oh.
Okay. So sometimes those long, narrow rooms they seem a lot bigger than they are because they're going all the way down to the floor. That knee wall is going all the way down to the floor. You can only count it up at 5 feet. So all of a sudden now that 15-foot wide room is only 10 feet wide. Okay, as far as legitimate square footage, and again, it has to average 7 feet.
Interesting. Basements were a big thing back where I come from. New England. I love basements. I wish we had more of those here. You can just get everything that you want to put away, and that kind of leads me to why our houses here have minimal storage. Like, if you're not going to give me a basement, can I have, a little bit more attic space? I always find sometimes the builders, if thought through, there'd be a lot more storage. I have 15 Christmas trees. I need to find a home for those bad boys.
I guess you do.
Yeah.
Do you really have 15?
Yes. When I grow up, I want to own a Christmas tree shop. Yeah. I want to be, Christmas 360. Yeah. That's when I grow up.
So that's
that and Dolly Parton. I want to be her too. But, we can't always get what we want in life, but it's so good.
That's
Love
awesome.
it.
That's
hey,
awesome.
so let's continue our talk. Yeah.
And continue writing those questions, folks, even on Super Bowl Sunday. We appreciate that effort.
All right. So
questions at talkmusiccity.com. I'm sorry.
No, yeah.
Questions at talkmusiccity.com.
So not putting a sign in your front yard. So people do that. I'm not a fan. I don't like you putting holes in my front yard. I'm big on making sure my lawn is to look a certain way. But share about, making sure that sign's in the front yard.
That's mistake number 7, not putting a sign up in the front yard. So here's the message.
Okay.
Understand this. Especially to the experienced agent, and I think to the consumer as well. Look, it's not uncommon. Let's say somebody's lived in their home for a long time. They don't want the neighbors to know about it, so they want to be kind of a secret seller. And that's the message that you're selling. Yeah, or sending out there to the populace. I want to sell, but I really don't want anybody to know I want to sell. Okay, so that sends a mixed message to the consumer and to the experienced realtor who's saying, okay, this person's going to be a pain in the behind to deal with possibly because they're really not motivated. When you're representing the buyer as an agent, you're looking for folks that want the buyer more than they want you. Okay. You're looking for motivated folks. So when you don't have that sign out there in the yard, you're sending that message. The other part of it is to understand this, and this is a really important part as well, and that is sign calls are one of our best sources of leads for that home.
Perfect.
See, the folks have pulled up to it. They've seen the neighborhood. They're just really probably curious about the price. But they like the neighborhood. They like the looks of the outside of the house. They must like everything they see. They're just curious about it. So they won't have that benefit. You won't have that benefit of that really high qualified buyer if you don't have that sign in the front yard. To me, the biggest deal is if I'm out showing property and I pull up to a house that doesn't have a sign, okay, I've got a seller with mixed feelings here. Do they really, really, really want to sell? Oh,
interesting. But what if your house is, down the lane and there's not a lot of traffic that goes through it? What if your house is further out?
It's still the sign call. If the sign call is still the best call.
Okay.
And the sign is still important, especially down a lane, because sometimes there'll be multiple homes down that lane and you don't know which one it is. So
that is true.
That sign is really important in those situations.
That is true. Okay. That is true. Yep. So making sure that you put a sign in the front yard is key when selling your house.
It's an important thing. Again, keep in mind, folks, that every one of these little things we're talking about can add another few $1,000s to your bottom line at the end of the day. Okay. If you're not getting people come in your home because they don't know that your home is available, you've had good qualified buyers drive by that didn't know your home was available, that's going to ultimately affect you.
What about the looky-loos now that they know, when you have an open house?
And we don't care. We're okay with the looky-loos because, sometimes you don't know what happened around the kitchen table last night, so that they weren't that motivated maybe a few minutes ago, but all of a sudden found out they're pregnant or whatever. There's just a lot of things.
Now they need the new house. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
All right. That is good. Good information there. So what is our next one?
Next mistake is being around when your home is being shown. After all, nobody knows your home better than you do, right? So,
sure.
So a lot of folks want to hang out.
I want to make sure you're selling it. You're describing it. You're you're telling everything, all the nooks and crannies of all those things, right?
That you're really selling it. So you hit a key point there. People expect somebody to be selling their home. Really, this home should be selling itself in all sincerity. I talk about helping 3,000 families buy or sell property. I don't know that I've ever sold a home to anybody.
Interesting.
I've helped people make decisions. I've helped people get to the finish line. I've helped people narrow down their choices maybe. But I've always believed that a home should sell itself. And part of the reason why I'm suggesting here that people not hang out is because one of the things I've learned that people appreciate over the years is if I do see some sign of them liking this particular property, we'll sit down in the living room. Okay, we'll just get comfortable and see how the vibe is from that point. People aren't going to do that if the seller's hovering around. They're not going to look in the closets. They're not looking in the cabinets. They're not looking at the storage. They're not looking at details of the property. If the seller's over your shoulder, you're going to do that anyhow?
Well, he's in the other room, but I will tell you, he was there, and I was overwhelmed. I was having a little anxiety, I will tell you that did cause some anxiety because, I wanted to be okay with saying I didn't like that, and I felt like maybe I would offend him.
Exactly. That's exactly why, because people do get offended. They don't want to share their real truth. That's why, as a for sale by owner, it's so hard because people are not going to tell you the truth because they don't want to hurt your feelings.
Right. Hey, this is really good. Let's keep talking about should you be around when selling your home. Hey, and you're listening to the Talk of Music City Real Estate, and we'll be right back.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN, the talk of Music City Real Estate.
Where we educate and motivate all things real estate.
Hey, Carey Ann, we're back.
We are back.
And we're going to continue on with this mistake number 8, being around when your home is being shown.
Yes.
I see that so often where folks just want to hang out and be sure they can answer the questions and hover. It's hard to...
Depending on the size of the home, it could be, yes, very overwhelming.
Yeah. See, my belief is if we can help people sit down and look at it from that vantage point, that we give them a chance to get emotionally connected to the home. And, buying a home is an emotional decision. I'll never forget one time working with this young couple. I had been showing them property, and they were so cute. They were so in love. And I had listed a home.
Oh, to be in love.
Oh, to be in love. So I listed this home one night, and I said, look, I think I can sell your home, but here's the deal. I want you to have a fire in the fireplace. It was wintertime. I want you to have some soft music going on, okay? And I want you to have something cooking on the oven so the smells are really going, and maybe a few candles here and there. Okay. So we walk in the door. And guess who's playing? None other than Barry White. And I'm thinking, okay, they got the message. So then...
I would pick Luther, but...
but they got Barry White going on. And there's a fire in the fireplace, and there in each room we walked into, they were so cute. They were holding hands. They'd squeeze each other, and they'd look at each other and giggle, and then look back at whatever we're looking at, So we get in the kitchen, and it's smelling great, and the candles are going.
It's because their kitchen, not mine. It would not be smelling so good if it was my kitchen. But
we're going down the hallway towards the master bedroom, and you can see this is staged really, really well. We've got candles going on. We walk around the corner. They look at the bed. They look at each other. They look at me and they giggle and they hug each other and they say, "Mr. Mohr, we want to buy this house." I mean, just right there on the spot. We want to buy this house.
Oh, so they bought right into it.
But the point is, it's an emotional decision,
right? And
these folks had staged the place for them to get emotional about, and to see the value of that. Did
they have that closet in the back all locked up with everything?
With everything in it.
Yeah, I love that.
So there is one caveat to not being around when the property's being shown. There is that one caveat that I do believe in. So if it's a second showing, okay. So there's nothing wrong with meeting everybody at the door, saying, "I'm just on my way out, but I wanted to make sure that if you had any questions, I could answer those for you before I leave." Okay, then be sure and book it after that.
Sure.
Go on ahead and leave. Remember, you want people to feel comfortable looking around.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. Good stuff.
Mistake number 9 is where we're heading to next. And that mistake is not making your home available when buyers want to see it.
I got things to do, Monty.
I know. You are the other side of the coin here because you're a busy person. You got your home on the market. Somebody wants to see it at 2:00. That's not convenient. The baby's napping, or the dog needs to be put away,
right,
or whatever. Okay, This doesn't work that way. What people don't understand, I think, sometimes is again, back to that, I'm not living in my home. My home's on the market, but they think that, okay, if somebody wants to see my home between 2 and 3, that it won't bother anything if I go ahead and move that to the next day from 2 to 3 or something like that. They don't understand how it works, okay? So here we are. We've got, let's say, half a dozen properties scheduled, and would typically, as a real estate professional, we try to put those in geographic order. Okay, so we're making a big loop probably or something like that. So when somebody says, no, 1 to 2 is not convenient, can you come back tomorrow, or can you show it at 4 o'clock instead, or those kind of things? A lot of times, especially with the growing inventory out there, a lot of times that property gets put to the bottom of the stack then.
Oh.
And again, there's that message, kind of like the signage we talked about a little while ago, is this person really, truly motivated? Remember, an experienced real estate professional that's representing a buyer is going to always be measuring, is that person motivated or not?
Okay.
Or are they going to be difficult to work with? Okay. Because a lot of times it translates that way. So being convenient for you is not what's important. It's convenient for the buyer. So we have to remember that. Okay.
I also think sometimes too, I was living in an area that had homes. I don't know what they call them when they're like 5 feet apart.
Yeah, patio homes, maybe. Townhomes, patio homes.
Yeah, they weren't townhomes. They were just single-family homes, only 5 feet apart.
Okay.
But I was one of the original buyers, right, way back in the day, and I had some new neighbors who enjoyed, even though we were so close to each other, they enjoyed having, their 4-legged friends out certain times, right? Or, they barked at certain times. So I think you also have to think 2 steps ahead, not just on your own schedule, but maybe your neighbor's schedule too. If you're really looking to sell that property, you need to think ahead of, okay, what's happening next door, right at this particular time. If there's a party going on, and in the hot tub that's right outside the bedroom from the neighbor, it may not be the right time to show that property because they're probably not going to buy into the idea of what's happening over there, So, kind of thinking through all that is key as well, I think, because a lot of us, do get busy. The average Joe doesn't have a lot of time to stop what they're doing and sell their house. As agents, that's your main job. When we're ready to sell our home, we still have a full-time job, sometimes 2 full-time jobs, right? And trying to get it all organized. So absolutely, that's one that is, you just have to embrace the idea that, hopefully during work hours you can show it. But a lot of people are working, so the people that want to see it is actually after hours sometimes too, right?
It's just not convenient selling a home. There's just no getting around that.
Right.
It's just not. But here's the deal. If you just embrace the change, okay, I don't live here. My home's on the market. I'm going to price it right. I'm going to get a professional working for me. I'm going to take the right pictures. I'm going to put a sign in the front yard. I'm going to do all these things. Then the time's going to be shorter. The inconvenience is going to be shorter. The more that we want to pretend like, well, the consumer can understand, the buyer understands that I have a busy schedule, so I couldn't pick up all the stuff in the house and have it ready and all these kind of things. You're just playing games. See, here's the deal. Think about that thickness of that front door, Carey Ann. Think about that. Think about the dynamic difference between that 1.5 inch, 2 inch thick door, okay?
Okay,
on
the door,
this side,
it's 2 inches thick.
Okay, on this side, we have, I want to get all the money I can for this house. On
Absolutely.
this side,
I do.
I'm not going to pay any more than I have to on this side, okay? On that little 1.5 inch, 2 inch thick, the difference, the eons difference here.
Right.
So in order for this person to get what they're looking for, and that is the maximum of the house, they've got to get as many people in that front door as they possibly can. Okay, so so the motions can connect. So that this is the right home, it's the right yard, it's the right whatever it is they're looking for. But that doesn't happen if you don't have plenty of people to see. Every house that's sold has a number, a magic number of people that need to go through that before that happens. Okay, the right person. One house could have just one buyer. Okay, here's right here. The next one could have 15 or 20 or whatever. But you need to get through those numbers. You got to let people in.
Right.
Or it ain't going to happen. You said an important thing that I think we need to cover sometime in the show, and that is knowing that the dog's barking.
Right.
During a certain part because that's real. Okay, I live in that. The reason why that's a sensitive issue with me is we're trying really hard to be good neighbors to some folks that have a dog that barks constantly. And I told Connie the other night when this dog had barked another hour, okay, and just hear bark, 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 bark. Okay, it's hard.
Or a higher pitched one. You could go a lot higher because that was the one next to me.
Okay, the point is, as sellers, we're required to sign a seller's disclosure. Do you know anything that could adversely affect the value of the property? And we're going to get into that to another more exhaustive time.
Right.
But that includes, noises that would keep us from that peaceful, state of that peaceful ownership that we're supposed to have when we own a property.
So we're supposed to relay that information?
Quiet enjoyment, I think is what it's called.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So, so I think I told Connie the other day, I said, I think we're at a point right now is if we sold this house and we didn't disclose that there's a darn barking dog next door, could we be sued?
Oh, that's a good question.
That would adversely affect the value of property. We have to disclose that.
Interesting.
So it's an interesting topic that we'll have to get into. I would love to get a real estate attorney in here sometime and explore that further, because that is an important thing. You don't think about a dog barking being that important.
Absolutely. They do make now. I purchased multiple ones. They come in bird cages, and there's different noise canceling dog machines.
Oh, really?
Yes. However, this one must have been deaf because he didn't hear any pitch sound that I provided in my house. So it was interesting. But this was really good information here. So we talked about the 10 most common mistakes that sellers make when selling their home in today's market.
That's right. And so we're going to be, our next one is going to lead into next week's show, and that is simply mistake number 10. It goes back to that again, hiring that professional who knows what they're doing. And we're going to discuss the critical steps of hiring that right professional, finding that right agent. Okay?
Yes, the tips of choosing that right real estate agent is so key.
Very helpful.
We thank everyone for tuning in this Sunday evening on the Talk of Music City. We hope you enjoy the Super Bowl, and we'll see you back next Sunday.
Go Rams.
Monty, you just went there?
I did.
Just wait.